Have you ever noticed that Andrew Huberman never mentions certain techniques of Carl Jung? It's no coincidence. There's a specific method Jung developed that Huberman deliberately avoids sharing with his millions of followers. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why he prefers to keep that door locked. But before revealing what's being hidden, I need to show you something unsettling. Huberman talks about dopamine, neuroplasticity, sleep protocols, all very scientific, very controlled, very safe. Jung spoke of shadows that devour you from within, of unconscious forces that control your life without you even realizing it, of methods that can free you completely from the need for gurus and external protocols. See the difference? One keeps you dependent on constant information. The other gives you total psychological autonomy. Coincidence? I doubt it. Have you ever wondered why modern science influencers only cite certain parts of Jung? Why do they talk about the shadow self, but never explain the complete method to integrate it? Why do they mention individuation, but omit the practical techniques Jung actually used? The answer is simple and cruel. These methods work too well. They make people too independent. And truly independent people don't need weekly podcasts, daily protocols, or gurus to guide them. Carl Jung developed something I now call the protocol of psychological autonomy, a method he first tested on himself, then on patients, and finally documented in texts that most people have never read. Huberman has read them, I'm sure of it, but he'll never talk about it publicly, because this protocol doesn't generate loyal followers. It generates people who no longer need leaders. And that's terrible for any influencer's business model. Let me show you what I'm talking about. In 1913, Jung went through what he called a confrontation with the unconscious. For 3 years, he experienced visions, lucid dreams, and altered states of consciousness that almost drove him mad. But instead of running away or medicating these states, Jung did something revolutionary. He developed a method to dialogue directly with these inner forces, to negotiate with them, to consciously integrate them. He called it active imagination, but it wasn't meditation. It wasn't visualization. It was something completely different. It was a technique to access layers of the psyche that modern science prefers to ignore. Layers that contain not only traumas and fears, but also resources, talents, and potentials you can't even imagine possessing. Jung discovered that when you learn to consciously dialogue with your unconscious, something extraordinary happens. You stop projecting your power onto external figures. You stop seeking constant validation. You stop needing gurus. You become psychologically autonomous. And that's exactly what Huberman doesn't want you to discover. Because if you knew you could access your own inner wisdom directly, why would you continue listening to 3-hour podcasts about protocols that others created? If you discovered that your unconscious contains personalized solutions to your specific problems, why would you pay for courses that promise universal formulas? If you understood that you can develop your own internal compass for decision-making, why would you depend on constant external advice? The answer is obvious. You wouldn't. And that's why this method remains hidden. But Jung didn't hide it forever. He left clues, detailed instructions, a complete protocol. But this information is scattered in dense texts, full of technical language that discourage most people, as if Jung had created a natural security system. Only those who really want to find it will find it. Huberman could translate all of this into modern language. He could create episodes explaining step by step how to practice active imagination. He could teach the techniques Jung used to amplify dreams, to dialogue with autonomous complexes, to integrate rejected aspects of personality. But he doesn't. And do you want to know the most ironic thing? Huberman uses these techniques. I'm sure of it. How do you think he manages to produce so much original content? How does he maintain that constant mental clarity? How does he navigate complex decisions without appearing anxious or lost? And D, he doesn't rely solely on dopamine and sleep protocols. He has direct access to his own unconscious wisdom. He knows how to extract insights, creativity, and direction from layers of the psyche that most people don't even know exist. But he prefers to sell you external protocols because protocols create dependence, psychological autonomy creates freedom, and freedom doesn't generate constant views. Now, let me be clear about one thing. I'm not saying Huberman is malicious. He probably doesn't even consciously realize what he's doing. I'm saying there's an inherent conflict of interest between teaching true psychological autonomy and maintaining a dependent audience. And when that conflict exists, autonomy always loses. But Jung didn't have that conflict. He was a therapist, not an influencer. His goal was to make patients independent of him, not dependent on him. And that's why he developed methods that really work. Methods that connect you directly with your own source of inner wisdom. Let me show you how this works in practice. Imagine you're facing a difficult decision. Career, relationship, life change, anything. The Huberman model suggests analyze the data, optimize biology, follow tested protocols, trust science. The Jung model suggests something completely different. Sit in silence. Formulate your question clearly. And then, instead of thinking about the answer, allow images, sensations, or symbols to spontaneously arise in your mind. Don't force, don't control, just observe. And then dialogue with these images as if they were real people. Ask questions, listen to the answers, negotiate solutions. Seems strange, seems unscientific. It's exactly that reaction that keeps you dependent on external authorities. Jung discovered that your unconscious contains an independent intelligence, a wisdom that knows aspects of your life that your conscious mind can't access. And when you learn to dialogue with that intelligence, you obtain insights that no external protocol can provide, because they are personalized insights, tailor-made for your specific situation, created by a part of you that knows all the details, all the nuances, all the variables you don't even consciously perceive. This is real power, and it's precisely the kind of power that modern gurus don't want you to discover. Because if you discover it, you no longer need them. Jung called it the transcendent function, the psyche's ability to create original solutions through dialogue between the conscious and unconscious. Huberman talks about neuroplasticity, about how the brain can change and adapt. But neuroplasticity is just the biological mechanism. The transcendent function is what drives that mechanism. It's what decides how and in what direction the brain will change. And Jung developed practical methods to consciously activate this function, methods that Huberman knows about, but will never teach publicly. Because teaching these methods would be like a drug dealer teaching his clients to produce their own drugs. It would work, but it would end the business. Have you ever wondered why Jung is cited by practically every famous psychologist and neuroscientist, but only superficially? Why do they mention concepts like shadow self and individuation, but never explain the practical methods Jung developed to work with these concepts? Why does everyone talk about Jung, but no one teaches Jung? The answer lies in the very nature of the methods he created. Jung didn't develop techniques to solve specific problems. He developed methods to activate your own ability to solve any problem. He didn't teach strategies. He taught how to access your own inner strategy. He didn't offer answers. He taught how to ask the right questions to your own unconscious. And that's dangerous for any industry based on dependency. Imagine if everyone knew how to directly access their own inner wisdom, how to dialogue with their own internal sources of creativity, intuition, and guidance. How many courses, books, podcasts, and daily protocols would become obsolete? How many gurus would lose their followers? How many entire industries would collapse? Jung knew this, and that's why he was careful about how he shared his methods. He didn't want to create a religion based on his techniques. He wanted each person to develop their own direct connection with their inner wisdom. He didn't want followers. He wanted autonomous individuals, and he succeeded. The patients who truly applied Jung's methods didn't become Jungians. They became themselves, more complete, integrated, and autonomous versions of themselves. They stopped looking for gurus because they discovered they carry their own inner guru. Now, you might be thinking, if these methods are so powerful, why didn't Jung make them more accessible? Why did he write in such a complex way? The answer will surprise you. Jung discovered that methods of deep psychological transformation only work when a person is genuinely ready for autonomy. If you still want easy answers, ready-made formulas, and external protocols, you won't be able to apply Jung's techniques effectively, because these techniques require you to take full responsibility for your own transformation. They require you to dialogue directly with parts of yourself that you might prefer to ignore. They require you to question not only your beliefs, but the entire system of psychological dependence that modern society has created. Jung made his methods difficult to find because they only work for those who really want to find them. And that's why Huberman will never talk about them, because explaining them would be like explaining to someone how to stop needing explanations. It would be like teaching independence to people who still want comfortable dependence. It would be like giving autonomy to those who still prefer to be guided, and that doesn't work. It can't work. True psychological autonomy can only be conquered, never given. Jung knew this. Huberman knows this too. The difference is that Jung created methods for those who want to conquer. Huberman created content for those who want to continue being guided. And there's nothing wrong with either approach. The problem arises when you are ready for autonomy. But you continue consuming content made for dependence, when you are ready to find your own answers, but you continue searching for external answers. When you are ready to trust your own inner wisdom, but you continue delegating important decisions to protocols created by others. It is at this moment that you need what Jung really developed. And it is at this moment that you realize why Huberman keeps certain doors locked. But here's what he didn't expect. Jung left keys. Keys hidden in texts that few bother to read completely. Documented methods that work independently of any guru or external authority. And now you're going to discover exactly how to use them. Pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Because what I'm going to teach you now cannot be unlearned. Once you understand how to directly access your own inner wisdom, you will never again be able to pretend you need others to guide you. This door, once opened, never closes again. Jung called his main method active imagination. But this name confuses people. It's not imagination in the sense of fantasy or daydreaming. It's a specific technique to establish conscious communication with autonomous parts of your psyche. Parts that normally operate outside your awareness, but that influence your decisions, your fears, your desires, and your limitations. Jung discovered that these parts have their own personalities, their own agendas, their own wisdom. And when you learn to dialogue with them consciously, they stop sabotaging you and start helping you. Let me show you how this works in practice. First, you need to understand one fundamental thing. Your mind is not a single unit. It's an ecosystem of partial personalities. There's a part of you that wants security, another that wants adventure, one that seeks approval, another that despises conventions. Normally, These parts fight among themselves in your unconscious. One sabotages the plans of the other. One creates anxiety when the other tries to act. The result, constant internal conflict, self-sabotage, decisions that never stick. Jung discovered that when you bring these parts into consciousness and allow them to dialogue openly, they find creative solutions that benefit all. This isn't theoretical psychology. It's practical psychological engineering. Here is the exact protocol that Jung developed. Step 1. Identify a specific internal conflict, something you want to do, but always sabotage, something you know you should change, but never can. Step 2. Sit in silence and formulate a clear question about this conflict, not a rhetorical question, a genuine question for which you want a real answer. Step 3. Close your eyes and allow images, sensations, or even voices to emerge spontaneously in response to your question. Don't force it, don't control it. Just observe. Step 4, and here's the part that Huberman never mentions. Dialogue with these images as if they were real people. If the image of a frightened child emerges, ask why she's afraid. If an authoritarian figure appears, question what they want from you. If a wild animal emerges, discover what it represents. Step 5. Listen to the answers. Don't analyze. Don't judge. Just listen. You'll discover these figures have surprising things to tell you. Perspectives your conscious mind never considered. Solutions that combine seemingly contradictory aspects of your personality. Step 6. Negotiate. Find ways to honor the needs of all parties involved. The part that wants security doesn't need to sabotage the part that wants growth. They can work together if you facilitate the dialogue. This is the method Jung used to integrate his own psyche, the same method he taught to patients who became completely autonomous. And it's the same method you can use to resolve any internal conflict, make any difficult decision, or access creative resources you didn't even know you possessed. But there's more. Jung discovered that when you practice this method consistently, something extraordinary happens. You develop what he called the transcendent function, the ability to generate original solutions to problems that seem impossible, the ability to find third options when apparently only two bad ones exist, the competence to transform destructive conflicts into creative tensions. This isn't mysticism, it's advanced psychological technology. Huberman talks about hacking your biology to optimize performance. Jung developed methods to hack your psychology and access resources most people don't even know exist. The difference? Jung's methods make you independent. Huberman's keep you dependent on constant external inputs. Want a concrete example of how this works? Let's say you're facing a difficult career decision, staying in a secure job or risking starting your own business. The Huberman approach would be analyze the data, consult experts, create a decision-making protocol, optimize your neurological state for mental clarity. The Jungian approach would be completely different. You would sit in silence and allow figures to emerge representing different aspects of this decision. Perhaps a conservative executive in a suit appears, representing your need for security. Perhaps a rebellious artist emerges, symbolizing your desire for creative freedom. Instead of letting these parts fight in your unconscious, you would facilitate a conscious dialogue between them. The executive would explain their legitimate concerns about financial stability. The artist would share their vision of personal fulfillment and authenticity, and then, through this dialogue, a third option would emerge, a creative solution that honors both the need for security and the desire for freedom. Perhaps a hybrid model, perhaps a gradual transition, perhaps a completely new approach your conscious mind never considered. This isn't fantasy. It's how Jung made his own important decisions. It's how he helped patients resolve conflicts that seemed impossible. And it's exactly the type of method Huberman will never teach, because it would teach you to no longer need external advice. But there's an even more powerful aspect to this method. Jung discovered that when you practice active imagination regularly, you begin to access what he called collective wisdom, insights that go beyond your personal experience, solutions that seem to come from a broader source of knowledge. I'm not talking about anything supernatural. I'm talking about consciously accessing patterns of information your brain processes unconsciously. Your brain registers millions of details your consciousness doesn't perceive. Subtle connections, emerging patterns, latent possibilities. When you learn to dialogue with your unconscious, you gain conscious access to this deeper level of information processing. It's like having an internal consultant who has analyzed all the available data and can offer perspectives your conscious mind couldn't generate on its own. Jung called this the wisdom of the self with a capital S, the central organizing intelligence of the psyche. Huberman talks about how the brain integrates information. Jung developed methods to consciously access the results of this integration. The difference is that Jung's insights come from within. Huberman's depend on constant external information. And here's something that will shock you. Jung discovered that the more you use these methods, the less you need them, because you develop a direct and continuous connection with your inner wisdom. You stop making bad decisions because your intuition becomes calibrated and reliable. You stop sabotaging yourself because all parts of your psyche are aligned. You stop looking for gurus because you've discovered you carry your own source of guidance. It's the exact opposite of the business model of any modern influencer. Huberman needs you to continue having problems to solve, needs you to keep looking for protocols and optimizations, needs you to remain dependent on external inputs. Jung created methods that solve the very need to solve problems externally. Want to know the truth about why Huberman will never teach this? Because it would work, and people who develop real psychological autonomy stop consuming personal development content. They stop looking for hacks and protocols, stop following gurus, stop needing constant external validation. They become sources of wisdom for themselves. And that's terrible for any industry based on keeping people searching for external answers. But there's something even deeper happening here. Jung discovered that when you develop true psychological autonomy, you automatically become less manipulable. You stop being influenced by emotional marketing, stop searching for magic solutions, stop projecting authority onto external figures. You develop what Jung called inner discernment, the ability to distinguish between genuine wisdom and sophisticated manipulation. And that is dangerous for any system based on influence and persuasion. Imagine if everyone developed this ability, if everyone knew how to access their own inner wisdom and distinguish between genuine guidance and commercial manipulation. How many industries would collapse? How many business models would become obsolete? Jung wasn't just developing therapeutic methods, he was creating tools of psychological liberation. And that's why these methods remain hidden. Not because they're ineffective, because they're too effective. Now let me teach you an advanced variation of this method, something Jung developed for situations where you need insights on complex issues or important decisions. He called it confrontation with the inner wisdom figure. Here's how it works. You formulate an important question about your life, something that really matters, not something trivial. Then, in a state of active imagination, you allow a figure representing wisdom to emerge. It could be an elder, a religious figure, a wise animal, or even an older, wiser version of yourself. You pose your question to this figure and listen attentively to the answer. The answer usually comes in the form of symbols, metaphors, or stories, not in direct advice. And here's the most powerful aspect. This figure often offers perspectives your conscious mind would never consider, because it represents an unconscious integration of your entire life experience. All your acquired knowledge, and all the patterns you've perceived but never consciously processed. It's like having access to a consultant who knows aspects of your situation that you yourself haven't consciously perceived. Jung used this technique for his own important decisions and documented extraordinary results, insights that completely changed his understanding of complex situations. Creative solutions that combined seemingly incompatible aspects. Guidance that proved correct years later. This isn't imagination or fantasy. It's a systematic method for accessing unconscious-level information processing. And it's exactly the kind of method Huberman will never mention. Because if you knew you could directly access your own inner wisdom for any situation, why would you continue seeking answers in podcasts and protocols? If you discovered you carry within you a reliable source of personalized guidance, why would you depend on external gurus? The answer is obvious, you wouldn't, and that's why this door remains locked. But Jung left the keys, and now you know where to find them. The question is, are you ready to use them? Because once you open that door, you can never again pretend you need others to make important decisions for you. Once you develop confidence in your own inner wisdom, you can never again delegate your autonomy to external authorities. Once you learn to consciously dialogue with all aspects of your psyche, you will never again accept internal conflicts as normal or inevitable. This transformation is irreversible. And maybe that's exactly why Jung made his methods difficult to find. Not to protect them from people who weren't ready, but to protect people who weren't ready from them. Because true psychological autonomy carries responsibilities not everyone wants to assume. The responsibility of making your own decisions without blaming others for the results. The responsibility of developing your own philosophy of life instead of adopting ready-made ideologies. The responsibility of becoming the final authority on your own existence. This scares many people. It's easier to follow protocols created by others, more comfortable to have gurus to blame when things go wrong. Jung knew this. And that's why he only shared his methods with people who genuinely wanted autonomy. Huberman knows this too. And that's why he only shares methods that keep people dependent on external guidance. There's no judgment here. Both approaches serve different purposes for people at different stages. The problem arises when you're ready for autonomy, but continue consuming content made for dependence. When you're ready to trust your own wisdom, but continue seeking external authorities. When you're ready to become completely responsible for your own life, but continue waiting for others to tell you how to live. If you've come this far, you're probably ready. Ready to discover that you've always had direct access to the wisdom you sought in others. Ready to understand that your psyche contains resources more powerful than any external protocol. Ready to become the final authority on your own transformation. Jung developed the tools, documented the methods, left detailed instructions. Huberman knows these tools, uses these tools, but will never teach them publicly. Because teaching true psychological autonomy would be like teaching your clients to no longer need you. And that's not a sustainable business model for influencers, but it can be the beginning of your true psychological freedom. The choice, as always, is yours. You can continue seeking external answers to questions only you can answer, or you can use the keys Jung left to open the door Huberman prefers to keep locked. The door that leads directly to your own inner wisdom. The door that, once opened, renders all others unnecessary.